What's up, guys? Welcome, Eigen family, once again. So, just guys, to start off the episode, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. As we always say, I'm sure you're sick of hearing it by now, but that helps us out, so do that if you haven't yet. And then also, guys, check out our website, eigenbros.com, Eigenbros on Instagram, Eigenbros on Twitter, Eigenbros2 on TikTok. Although we need to still make some more TikToks. I got to find some time. One of these days. It's coming. And then, of course, guys, the patrons, thank you so much, guys, for donating to the Patreon. We greatly appreciate it. It helps me and Juan, immensely. So if you guys have any interest in doing that, go check us out at patreon.com/Eigenbros. And we do me and Juan do a 30-minute audio podcast there every week, just on random stuff, sometimes physics, sometimes not. So go check that out. Mm-hmm. And, so let's start the episode.
Actually, maybe we should make a sort of second point. We're going to start a new segment starting this episode.
Yeah.
Guess what it's called? Ask an Eigenbro.
So we literally just came up with this concept like 30 minutes before this. Yeah. I guess it's called Ask. Is it called Ask an Eigenbro or Ask the Eigenbros?
Ask the Eigenbros?
Yeah, I think that's better.
That's probably better.
So I guess what we should do is say, so basically it is, you guys can ask us any kind of physics question or science question or whatever related to the episode, or, just related to like physics or science or technology or something along those lines somehow. Mm-hmm. And then me and Juan will answer the question at the end of the show. So you can send your questions at eigenbros@gmail.com. That's our email address. Mm-hmm. So send whatever inquiries you got, and we'll feature it at the end of the episode.
Yeah. And this also goes for patrons. Patrons, you obviously have priority. So,
should we say that?
Yeah, you do, because you're paying for the
But
privilege.
patrons are always getting the questions, and that's not fair.
No, they get priority. But if they ask, sometimes we get questions from the patrons.
True. But we'll just, send your questions. It's not like you're, we don't have that many patrons, so it's not like you're never going to get your question answered.
No, I'm kidding. You will.
We should probably make another email for that, too, so it just doesn't get lost in the mix. Anyway, this is something we'll figure out over time.
If you're a listener right now, general listener, you can ask us at Eigenbros or tweet at us at, on our
No, don't tweet at us.
No, don't tweet at us?
No. That's going to be annoying.
All right. Then just email us at Eigenbros and title subject podcast question.
Or or ask the Eigenbros.
Or ask the Eigenbros question.
Yeah. We'll figure it out as we go.
Yeah.
It'll be more organized soon enough.
Yeah, first time doing it. So this week's topic though. Is,
So I don't know what we should call it yet because of course this one's kind of a more off the cuff in some sense discussion type format. We're trying to continue that on since the Grover's algorithm was appreciated by some. So we're trying to think a little bit more about our audio listeners again, since we've been kind of swept up in the YouTube, visual game for a while. We're trying to bring it back to the podcast roots of making this listenable for, our audio supporters.
We're trying to be inclusive.
Yeah, exactly. It's a fine balance you got to realize with podcasting to, try to make it entertaining for
both audio
and visual.
Yeah.
So we're gonna try to go there, but it's related to public intellectuals. So this is brought up to us by one of our OG supporters, Black Thoughts. Shout out to you. Thank you so much again, man, for your insight and everything. It's your support in the podcast. But he messaged us on Discord and said, "Well, I don't want to read it.
You don't want to read word for word." I mean,
you think we should?
I think it's a good
post.
Post.
You got it pulled up,
yeah,
so you can go ahead.
I pulled it up here.
I just had a trouble reading it coherently, so if you can try to make it coherent. I can't read on the fly that well sometimes.
Sure. He was suggesting that there's a conversation to be had about the intellectual dark web and other high-platform, non-mainstream scientific minds, and the pros and cons of them being many of the dominant popular science figures in the modern day. And that is essentially the thesis statement.
Yeah. So I guess we should just address like some of the main public intellectuals in the space, because we all are pretty aware of, at least a handful of big, math, science people, who are kind of in the mainstream on, let's say just mainstream television like legacy media, as well as people who are, internet public intellectuals, let's say, like in the podcast realm or even like the YouTube kind of like content creator realm, which is more in our vein. I guess we're both those, but yeah. So of course, what are some names that immediately would come to your mind? One,
in terms of physics, I can think of physics.
Yeah, yeah.
The physics people are, the big public figures. We're talking about Sean Carroll. We're talking about
right.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. We're talking about
my dad.
Yeah. Terrence is rebranding himself as Neil's son.
Yeah. Neil's son. Yes, my dad, Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Neil deGrasse Tyson. Your actual dad is in the other room, like, shedding a tear. Yeah. No, but after all I've done for you. No, I'm just kidding.
Right, my dad literally is in the other room.
No, but whatchamacallit? Yeah, Neil Tyson. By the way, is deGrasse a part of his like last name? Or
Bro,
did
I
he
don't
just
know.
go with his full name?
I think he went with his full name. He's doing the whole
middle name too.
LBJ thing.
Gotcha. LeBron James? No, that's LeBron James.
I was thinking Lyndon B. Johnson,
Gotcha.
but maybe LeBron James is more topical.
So it's Neil D. Tyson.
I think.
Gotcha.
That's a very heavy asterisk. I don't know.
This is a perfect time.
I'll look it up while
This is a perfect time to have an open invitation for Neil. Can you come on the show? And
Neil, please come on the show.
Please come on the show and just clarify your name for us, please.
Yeah.
That's it. We don't really need anything else, really. No, a couple other figures. Brian Greene. We have. I think we had Brian Cox as well.
Yeah, I forgot about Brian Cox.
Lawrence Krauss, although he has more of a prominence because he was invited on Joe Rogan's platform.
Right.
Which Joe Rogan seems to be kind of a pipeline for a lot of these people.
Very much so, because that also brings up a couple names that are pretty big within the Eigenbros space. Eric Weinstein and Brett Weinstein, whose prominence actually came from Eigenbros as well. I mean, I'm sorry, we're not that cool. From Joe Rogan as well.
You hear that, Eric? You're welcome.
Yeah, no, you're welcome for making your career. Right.
It's a joke. Please don't get upset at that, Eric. We're joking.
Yeah, he came from Joe Rogan as well, though.
Yeah.
So if you remember the old days of Joe Rogan when it was still on YouTube, Brett Weinstein had the whole controversy with race controversy at his school.
Last month, Evergreen State College in Washington went crazy when a professor of evolutionary biology named Brett Weinstein objected to a day of absence when white students and faculty were asked to voluntarily leave campus. Weinstein branded it a form of racial segregation. A group of student protesters called him a racist. The confrontation incited further protests, debates over free speech, and claims of systemic racism on campus.
I don't know who Brett is.
Oh, you don't know Brett Weinstein?
No.
Wow, one.
Please
okay.
Please give me some background on Brett.
Well, Brett Weinstein is Eric Weinstein's brother. Looks pretty much like, looks extremely like him. The skinny version of Eric. No offense, Eric. But he is a biologist by trade, and I guess specifically I don't want to say what type of biologist because I don't know, but he basically has some controversy, a couple controversies surrounding him. The first being the one that we were talking about with Joe Rogan, where there was some race issue on campus, and Brett chose to act in a counter way to what they were telling him to act in on campus. I'm kind of being vague here because I don't remember the exact details and I don't want to get them wrong. But basically, Brett just acted counter to what the campus was saying, and it was a huge controversy. I think he may have even had some repercussions from that. And then, of course, the second one being a later controversy that happened with him when he discussed it on the Portal with Eric. That's Eric's podcast, which he doesn't really do anymore. But he talked about a controversy with him and Carol Greider, which is another biologist, and they had some issue with mouse telomeres research, where Brett actually proposed the initial idea, and she got a Nobel Prize for it, and then he got zero credit for it, where it was originally his idea, so he claims. So yeah, that's that's Brett Weinstein, I guess, in a nutshell. So yeah, and then there's other public intellectuals as well. There's some newer ones, I guess, in my consciousness at least, like Sabina Hassenfelder. There's of course the intellectual bully Nassim Taleb, the intellectual alpha, I guess we could say.
Yeah, he constantly posts stuff. I followed him out of your recommendation.
Yeah,
and he's constantly posting stuff like, yeah, I'm like, essentially the equivalent of being like, I'm just built different than y'all. Like, I'm better than all of you. And it's just like the brass on this guy, like, just to be like, I'm built different, and then y'all can hate on me all you want.
Right. Actually, funnily enough, Nassim is having some major beef with Edward Snowden right now.
That's what I saw. Yeah.
Yeah, they're having some big time beef going on. I'm really interested to see how this goes down.
Yeah, but this goes. This is a. So all of these people, including the likes of even like Jordan Peterson,
right?
Like
who is a member of the intellectual dark web. Just to add,
which is, for those of you not in the know, the intellectual dark web, or as Joe Rogan so aptly
calls him the ineffectual dork web.
Which is, honestly, I think it's better term. That's a better term.
Yeah, more fitting.
More fitting because like the people. Let me just try to go back down to my original point.
Yeah.
The IDW is a group of people that have deviated from the mainstream sort of discourse topics and have been sort of,
well, specifically in academia.
Academia, and then and also, but in public discourse, like something in their story blew up, and their voice was amplified.
Right.
And so in that moment, they blew up to the stratosphere. Their prominence. Yeah. They just blew up,
right.
and that's the specific.
But some of them gradually got there too. Like Sam Harris, I don't think ever had a blow up moment. He kind of came to prominence around the whole.
Yeah,
you remember the atheism movement around circa Dawkins and like Hitchens days. Yeah, and he was kind of the weak link. He was kind of the weaker version of Dawkins and Hitchens in terms of the atheist space, but he built up his following over time in that sense. Yeah, whereas I guess the other ones had more of a blow up in some sense.
Yeah, which that's why I think Sam Harris is kind of just the constant.
Right, he's not
really
an underpinning of the IDW. The whole space.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, and also he just brands himself differently. He does kind of move differently in that space. He doesn't. He kind of seems detached from it all. He rarely gets political, as opposed to a lot of other IDW figures who get political.
He has, though.
He has.
He went off. I remember when Trump was not elected for the second, for the second time.
Okay, so maybe
he went off in a very
okay. So maybe I haven't been paying attention much, but
he was basically nana boo boo, fuck you Trumpers.
Gotcha.
He went off.
So he did. So what I'm trying to say is this group of people, the intellectuals, quote unquote, which are usually ex-academics. We're talking about PhD level, usually. Like
Ben Shapiro, I'm not sure if he's a PhD or not.
No,
because he loves to just quote his wife's MD credentials. And I feel like a PhD would just quote their own credentials rather than their wives all the time. So
he is. I
don't think he's Dr. Ben Shapiro.
I don't know if any respecting academic institution would give Ben Shapiro a PhD. I
mean, I won't hold it against the guy. I mean, I'm sure he could do it if he really wanted to.
I'm sure he could.
He's intelligent.
Yeah, but he just loves shooting air or blowing air up his own. You know what?
Well, he's kind of become a full-time, at least in my opinion. I think he's kind of become fully aware of his role.
Gotcha.
And he's reading WAP lyrics.
I said certified freak 7 days a week. Wet ass P word. Make that pull-out game weak. P word. P word is female genitalia.
And, really just, I mean, obviously, I know he knows the meaning of things, but he's really trying to sell the point to his audience.
He's being a character.
Yeah. He's gone like Candace Owens mode and just sold out to whatever his space is, Although he did redeem himself a little bit lately when he's talking about some of the COVID stuff, but he's always been kind of consistent about that. You know, he says that you should get the vaccine and whatnot.
Yeah.
And that's been his take for the whole time. But yeah, I guess Ben Shapiro's still heterodox. He's not fully sold out like Candace Owens, I would say, but he's still in that.
Somewhat
on
You're
that
saying,
line
and
for
you mean
me.
that in the sense that he's sticking to scientific claims. I
Yeah,
mean,
but he sells out in the sense that he caters to his audience at times.
right.
In terms of like
a political demagogue, you're saying.
yeah, like where you're sacrificing your intellectual integrity for the sake of your audience, basically, in some sense. Like you may not necessarily believe this, but you're kind of doing a song and dance in a Bill O'Reilly kind of
Bill
fashion.
O'Reilly
You know
effect.
what I mean?
I was going to say, literally quoting Bill O'Reilly, another guy who like Fox News would have you believe he's anti-establishment, but this guy has academic credentials.
Right.
Like we're talking Oxford. Like
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
we're talking like really high-end credentials. And
Well, Bill just seemed so defeated by the end, like he just didn't even believe any of it anymore.
no, he was there for a paycheck, and then it turns out he was like a real creep about it too.
Yeah, I don't remember the allegations he had, but I know some like sexual harassment, something.
Yeah, definitely booted him out. I mean, Fox News. I mean, come on, a bygone era, 1950s level caricatures.
Where you from, honey?
Miss Deaver's secretarial school.
Well, you're in the city now. Wouldn't be a sin for us to see your legs.
Right, he's still slapping interns.
He's
on
still
the
slapping
ass
interns
and
on the
whatnot.
butt, male or female, doesn't matter. No, regardless of gender expression, he's just like. Point is that these people, is from what I gather, is regardless of their. These people have the credentials, but they literally just deviate from the mainstream slightly, for the most part. Like
Yeah, maybe not slightly though, maybe a lot. You know.
yeah. Well, a lot of them tend to take extreme positions or quote unquote extreme positions from the mainstream or polarized positions from the
Polarized
mainstream.
is a better word, I'd say.
And then they create a groundswell and then come to prominence.
Yeah.
And then that wave of prominence, they ride that till the coattails fall off, or till the whatever the expression is, till the
wheels fall
till
off.
the wheels fall off. And that's kind of what you've seen with figures, I think, like who are very polarizing, like Jordan Peterson, Eric Weinstein, like these kinds of folks. Like they use their rise to prominence, and then they either can't handle the critics or the criticism, and then they just or they maybe they don't realize how much responsibility it is to become a public figure, right? Especially in these scientific spaces.
Can you give an example of who you might be thinking of?
Well, because like I'm thinking of Jordan Peterson specifically because here's a guy whose background is in academia,
Sure.
and I feel like he's way out of his element coming into like sort of a political sphere. Because if his psychology is in clinical, his background is in clinical psychology, and then coming into some political philosophy arguments about certain things, you can slip up and mess up really badly, and the effects of it are you now become a social pariah. The people in your field now look at you differently.
Sure.
And that's kind of like, if you want to talk about professionalism within your field, that doesn't make you look good to take a stance that I guess is, how would you say, is controversial.
Maybe too far from your expertise.
Yeah, or controversial, frankly.
So then I guess that begs the question then, would you say that public intellectuals maybe have too much of influence? Do you think they should rein it back? Or do you think that it's okay for them to step out of bounds every now and then? I mean, what would you say overall in terms of like how intellectuals move in these different areas of, let's say, discourse?
Yeah, I think you need to address your own weaknesses when you're coming into a topic Be
Like add
I'm
a
not an expert.
qualifier.
Yeah, I'm not an expert on this. I know you're pretty good at doing this. I'm
Yeah,
not.
I try to.
I'm not. I would just say stuff and just run with it. But like you're pretty good at, which I need to get better at because
It's
gonna
hard
get me
to,
in
right?
trouble.
Because you have
Yeah.
to really, you have to stop yourself sometimes because, you know, you can also get caught up in thinking like, you know how we talk, we don't have to qualify statements, right? Because we can just speak freely because we already know each other's expertise. When you're trying to speak to a wider audience, you have a responsibility to actually speak. You have to like almost spell things out for the wider audience, right? Because you don't know who's watching. It could be Meemaw in fucking Arkansas,
Sure.
you know, who's watching this and doesn't know anything about, you know, physics or science or whatever. So you got to really qualify what you're saying.
Shout out
right?
to Meemaw, yeah. but yeah, no, you're 100% right, man. Like,
Yeah.
what about you? Do you think, like, flip the question back to you? How do you feel about it?
Yeah, I think what you say is definitely a good point where, you know, if guys would qualify their statements a lot better, you know, not reach so much sometimes, it could be good. Overall, I do tend to think I like public intellectuals out in that space, but also me as a person who can discern BS really well. But I think I have an abnormal BS level. You know, not trying to prop myself up, but just from the amount of BS that I've had to the BS training I've had, let's say, just from physics.
Yeah.
Physics is basically a way to hone your BSometer
Yeah.
to the highest levels, right? Because you're
Yeah.
constantly wrong about everything.
Right.
So, and then among other things, you know, just being, you know, scammed in my life many times, you know, I can sense a lot of these tricks and tactics and things. So when you're really well honed, it's okay. I don't really have problems with public intellectuals speaking freely because I'll just fact check something immediately if I think it's if it's bull crap, you know, and I won't parrot it. But, you know, for the wider public, this can be an issue, right? So me selfishly, I don't really care. I'd rather them just speak freely, you know, because it's fine for me.
Yeah, you're saying you maybe I'm assuming here.
Yeah, sure.
Do you feel like you take the pieces that you find value in what they're speaking about, and then you're just kind of like whatever, like you're more piecemeal about the way you dissect?
Absolutely,
What
because I
public
mean, I couldn't
intellectuals
even remember most of the stuff anyway, right? So you just, I mean, I think this is pretty much anybody in conversation, right? You just, when you're entering a conversation, you take bits and pieces of things that you find significant within that conversation.
I think
And
that's
I
maybe a
do the same
subjective
thing.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's the pieces that you find useful or subjective for
Well,
sure.
no, because some people take both the content and the author into perspective.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, I do as well.
Mhm.
But I think I have a more of a willingness to. I don't necessarily need to know who the author is.
Yeah.
If I know the content is valuable, I think that's a separator between if you have a really good bullshit detector. You don't necessarily need the credentials behind it. I know some people rely on that. They rely on authority, but sometimes I also do as well. Like, you know, I'll offload my It's rare for me, but I'll sometimes offload my intellectual burden onto guys who I think have very good takes on things. Like, for instance, Nassim Taleb, I will sometimes just immediately divert to his opinion because my opinion is so bad or so underdeveloped that I just won't even touch it. I'm not an econ guy. I don't know anything about economics.
Yeah.
So when Nassim Taleb says Bitcoin bad,
Yeah.
I'm like, oh shit,
Maybe
maybe
Bitcoin
he's
is bad.
right. I'm not going to take that as Bitcoin is bad. I'm going to take it as maybe I need to think about this some more because I haven't done the legwork to think enough about this problem. Whereas Nassim Taleb has successfully predicted major, you know, changes and impacts on, you know, the entire economic framework of the United States in general. So it's like, who am I to question that guy? Of course, that's an authoritarian appeal. So even I do that sometimes, but that's for things that I really have no expertise on. And the things I also won't parrot that though, as that's the prevailing opinion. You know, if there's somebody else out there who's, let's say, if Vitalik Buterin is in a debate with Nassim Taleb and says that's a BS thing, then I'm like, okay, maybe that's, you know, this is these guys' fight. This ain't my fight.
Yeah.
You know, Vitalik Buterin is another guy who I would look as someone who I offload my intellectual or intellectually offload something off onto because he knows more about the crypto space than I do.
Or
So-
like, but what if? Okay, so you're saying Nassim Taleb says Bitcoin good, Bitcoin bad.
Yeah.
But Elon Musk says Dogecoin good.
Right.
So battle of the wits here.
But this is also where you can have two kind of seemingly opposed viewpoints in your mind. Like Bitcoin may be bad, but it doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad now. You know, Nassim talks about in his Bitcoin black paper how Bitcoin is bad ultimately, you know, for its whole longevity of its career, but it doesn't necessarily mean you can't make money from it. It just means you better watch your ass, you know.
Yeah.
When Elon's tweeting Dogecoin to buy Dogecoin, you know that there's going to be a market fluctuation, so you just take advantage of the exploitation of the market, right?
Yeah.
So you can have these maybe opposed viewpoints if you just really understand the nuance of them, though. You can hold these things within the same part of your brain, just know when to activate different, you know.
Yeah. And, well, I kind of want to circle
moves.
back to like just the bigger try to get a bigger picture of like what these public intellectuals have. Like so whatever your media diet is in terms of like who you like and who you listen to.
Yeah.
I think maybe we do put a lot of responsibility on some of these figures at
Yeah.
large. The way at least the media builds them up, and the way social media tears them down. Like,
Right.
I think I don't know if social media really props people up. Maybe it does.
Sure it does.
You
Eric
think so?
Weinstein, you know,
He's just
he
social
came from
media?
straight up social media, right? Because you know, when Eric Weinstein came on, it was only because Brett was like, "You got to beat my brother, who's way smarter than me," and Joe Rogan's like, "Smarter than you?"
Yeah.
And then, you know, sure enough, Eric Weinstein comes on the scene, and people are like, "Holy shit, this guy's smart as hell."
And Eric's
you know?
trying to be cool with Joe and be like, "Yeah, I wrote this." Like, I think he was saying to Joe he played guitar or something. I heard he was getting like he was getting railed on the Reddit boards because he was telling Joe that he could do this crazy
Riff
guitar
or something.
lick or something, and then Joe was like, "Dude, why are you trying to be cool with me, man?"
This is you jamming. Look, give me some of this. Give me some of this, Jamie. You jamming to Glenn Beck? Is that what it says? That's pretty fucking good. And you're doing that without a pick.
Well,
You're doing that with your fingernails.
if there's another one, yeah, that one.
Is that one
And
bad?
I didn't know you were supposed to. Yeah, you. That was the one that did it, I think. Apparently, you're supposed to use a pick, but I didn't know.
What do you mean but that you didn't know you're supposed to play with a
Dude,
pick?
I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. And
How'd
so
you learn how to do this?
I hang out in a room alone. It's sort of dark and lonely. But
Really?
Yeah.
When did you learn this?
This is part of the thing. I do a bunch of things that I don't do with other people, right? I just learn shit on my
Right,
own.
but when did you learn this? How long ago?
I don't even know. Some of it in the last year.
But when did you start playing guitar? You're being coy.
No,
I don't
I've
like
had a
it. I
guitar.
don't like it. I'm going to call you out on this. I don't like it.
Okay.
Very uncomfortable.
I've had a guitar since I was. Go after yourself. I've had a guitar since I was 15.
I already think you're. I don't know. I By the way, Joe Rogan, he's another figure in this. I don't think he's. People try to include him in this discussion, but he's an entertainer, and he's a
sounding board, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like the thing is, these weird liberal takes I've noticed. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with liberals, but they do some goofy shit sometimes. I'm just saying, as do conservatives.
Yeah.
But the thing is, with like the liberal takes I see on Twitter and whatnot, let's say on Joe Rogan, people give way too much credit to Joe Rogan's like
Podcast?
voice, his actual voice.
Yeah.
The thing is, the appeal of Joe Rogan, which I think this is what authoritarians don't understand, is people don't like Joe Rogan because they're hanging on his every word. He's not a public intellectual. The reason that guys who are physicists and guys who are like, you know, construction blue collar workers listen to Joe Rogan is because he just allows ideas to just sit and just to be and exist. You know, he's got guys from, you know, the CIA to physicists to like, you know, comedians.
To Bernie Sanders.
You're right, to Bernie Sanders, to comedians, to, you know, conspiracy guys like Alex Jones. It's just a sounding board for ideas. It's like he allows ideas to exist. It's like one of the last places, it seems, where you can just have free thought. You know, when we live in such an age of censoring and, you know, this PC culture of, you know, no one can say anything without having your entire livelihood destroyed. It's just like you need these, like this is why Joe Rogan's podcast has exploded, because it's like one of these last pockets, you know, on the internet where you can actually say things freely and you can actually speak your mind. So that's the only reason why Joe Rogan has so much prominence. This isn't like, but maybe they're mad about that because they can't censor Joe Rogan. He's beyond cancellation. He's beyond cancellation, right? Joe Rogan has FU money, right?
Yeah,
so to speak. He doesn't have to care about bending to the rules of whatever, you know, the SJWs want him to say.
Sure.
So he goes against the narrative.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just Joe Rogan's he's not a public intellectual. He's like, to me, he's like you remember from the time. Sorry, you remember from the times of like scientific revolution and whatnot, where they had these things called like salons.
No.
Well, the salons were like places intellectuals would go of the time. I think it's maybe in France.
Sure.
Maybe some other places like England or something. I don't know exactly. Check that. But they would have these salons where it'd be gatherings of intellectuals. They even have a modern day version of these where, you know, guys like Eric Weinstein would attend. But anyways, besides the point. But these salons would be places of free thought where intellectuals would gather and they would share ideas. And Joe Rogan's podcast is basically like that to me. It's like a modern day version of a salon. It's a one-on-one version of salons where you can actually just expound upon whatever your ideas are and just let them hang out in the ether, and people can take in whatever they want and they can dissect it however they please. It just exists. You know, you can have Alex Jones on, and then the next week you can have on, you know, Sean Carroll. So it's like these ideas can exist in the same space and you can take from them what you want.
Yeah.
Which is why I think it's so. That's why I don't mind people talking about a lot of different things. I don't care. Alex Jones can talk about physics, in my opinion, and I'll listen. Because then I'll get comedic value out of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I will get value.
Yeah, they're interdimensional beings that extract fear from it. And that's how they live.
Actually. That's pretty good.
Yeah. Dude, yeah. It's,
right.
Yeah.
I don't care. Alex Jones can talk physics all day.
Physics according to Alex Jones. That's what it is.
Yeah, but that's the thing is like if your BS meter is on point, you don't really care who says what.
Yeah.
I don't mind at all.
Yeah, there's a really good take on the internet I saw that was like the way people saw Oprah in the 90s or in the early 2000s. That's what Joe Rogan is for a lot of millennial aged men.
That's a very good point you bring up, because that's the thing I think is funny. It's a bad comparison though.
Why?
It's a good and a bad comparison at the same time, because it's like people make the joke, right, that Oprah is for women what Joe Rogan is for men, right? But it's different because Oprah is more of like she's much more of a influencer by her word.
I see.
Joe Rogan's not really an influencer by his word.
No, if you look at his Reddit, if you go to his Reddit, like I invite you, if whatever conception you have of Joe Rogan and his fan base, go to the Reddit, and it's constantly just laughing
people
at Joe Rogan.
shitting on Joe Rogan. Yeah, because nobody cares what Joe Rogan says.
Here's a snippet of Joe Rogan's podcast. If you've never listened to it.
Yeah.
About,
Shims on DMT.
Yeah. Tell me more about, like, if you had if there was an alien, if we discovered aliens came on, Joe Rogan would have the alien on and ask,
what does he think about chimps?
What does he think about chimps? Aliens? I mean, I'm sorry. We'll ask about other aliens.
Yeah.
And then he would ask about if they have something like DMT on their planet.
Joe Rogan definitely should be the first place aliens go if they ever do come here.
I think maybe that's how we'll find out there are aliens. He'll have the alien on and be like, I have great guests coming on. No, but in all seriousness, so my whole point is people see Joe Rogan as a platform for ideas and all that. I see him as sort of like what you were saying, like a bookshelf kind of like you have all these, like, it's like you're going to a library.
Right.
And it's like you're not going to get mad because, or you shouldn't get mad because there's Mein Kampf on the shelf.
Right, exactly.
Because you're just like, okay, well, there's a really bad, there's a lot of bad history here.
100%.
And it's like, okay, well, I could pull that out and like read it. and just kind of take away parts of it, but like
Right, I
just to
think that's a
kind of
great
see what
point.
it's like. But I'm not necessarily going to
And
believe
Hitler,
everything.
you can learn a ton from Hitler, right? You can learn
Sure.
right. You can learn like
You
how
can learn what not to.
exactly.
what not
You
to
can
be.
learn like how, and you can even learn like how a charismatic leader like that could claim a whole nation,
Come to power. Yeah.
come to power to kill millions of people. Right? That's
Yeah.
a very critical lesson. You should all really know, right?
Yeah. and
So
I mean,
these pieces of knowledge, like you can't just ignore the bad stuff. You got to take it all in. I feel like to really understand how the world works.
Yeah, and I mean, there's some people. To me, it's on this level of discussion of like book banning. Should we ban certain things? And maybe that's a larger discussion to have. And I think that's
I don't think so.
That's a
You-
discussion for
yeah.
for society at large to come to like terms about what is proper.
Anything that's
Discourse
any
on what
book
it
that's
is.
getting banned just makes it way more enticing to me to read, right? 'Cause you know if it's good enough to get banned, there's some seriously interesting ideas in there.
Sure, but there's an official government. Well, I wouldn't say it's probably not public, but there's an official list of banned stuff that the government bans.
Really, like
Yeah.
a blacklist for
Uh,
books.
For books and other content, some real
Okay.
crazy stuff.
Interesting.
I'm not going to tell you what it is because I've seen the
Yeah.
list.
Really,
Yeah.
one is
not
a
pretty.
CIA operative.
It's not pretty. It's a lot of stuff in there that's like, dude, this is kind of scary actually.
Now
So
I'm gonna Google it right after.
I mean, like, okay. So, by the way, if any future employers are watching this, I didn't see the list and I didn't look this up.
H3 podcast says in Minecraft. If you're saying anything
Yeah.
sketchy, just say
In-
in Minecraft.
In
I saw
Minecraft,
the
I
list.
looked this up,
Yeah.
and that's what I found. But in all seriousness, too, going back to this point, I think Joe's like, I guess, a library of content, and he'll have different people on, and I don't think people should go. I think people should probably maybe hold Joe to a certain standard. Sure, I guess, but that's his platform.
What standard though? The standard is just to be.
Yeah, but
Like,
I mean,
the
like
only standard I want Joe to hold to is just
his
keep
own-
the interview flowing.
Sure.
You know, and don't say too much.
Sure. That I'm saying whatever standard that is, okay, you can have your opinion on that. But like in terms of people that he has on, that's up to him and blah blah blah. You can either take it, throw the baby out with the bathwater or not. That's up to you. Going back to the bigger circle of like how intellectuals should move in this space, especially if you're a scientific figure. A lot of the physicists that come on don't necessarily I don't see them ever care about the other guests that come on.
What do you
have
mean?
like Sean Carroll and Neil deGrasse Tyson, and like they don't ever like look at, for instance, like Joe Rogan's like previous catalog of guests. And say,
Right.
I'm not going on because of this person or
Right.
he had this person on. I think that's probably
Well, sometimes they do.
sometimes they do.
Nassim's not a physicist, but he said that he wouldn't go on any podcasts that had Sam Harris on.
Oh, interesting.
But Nassim is kind of weird because he likes to be a baby online sometimes for some reason. Even though he literally wrote a book called Anti-Fragile, which is a little bit ironic.
It
but,
is kind of
we're
ironic.
not gonna.
Okay, now he's never going to come on this show because you just offended him, Terrence.
No, I already shit talked Nassim. I told him I could
could
out
bench.
deadlift him.
You could out deadlift him.
Yeah.
I saw there's a picture of him like driving in a car with Mark Ripito. If
Is
you
that a-
remember
is that a,
Mark Ripito?
bodybuilder?
Yeah, dude.
Sounds familiar.
Go Mad. He was like gallon of milk a day or something.
Oh shit.
He's like the 5x5 program guy.
Oh okay.
Yeah, he's a huge dude. He's a huge. If you were ever into bodybuilding,
Right.
It's huge. I was like, wow, what a crazy crossover! I never expected.
Well, it makes sense because Nassim's always talking about deadlift his life.
Yeah.
So
Well, anyway, yeah. How do you feel like? Do you feel like intellectuals coming into prominence have a responsibility, if they decide to take that route? If their voices are amplified, do you feel like they should probably have some equivalence of like media training?
yeah, well, I mean, not necessarily. I mean, if they want to go that route, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's just to make your own content better, right? Like I know Neil deGrasse Tyson and Michio Kaku use similar techniques for how they package information. They come up with these sound bites for all basically the related or relevant topics that people will ask on media. Like let's say if there's like the Oumuamua thing, the comet, then they'll prepare like, a soundbite that can be answered immediately within the scope of time that allows for these fast burst interviews. But that's just if you want to be a good science communicator for the media and whatnot. That doesn't really have any bearing on like the integrity of how you're doing things, right? And it's just all personal opinion. I mean, of course, the more prepared you are, the better. But
yeah, but speaking more on like someone like Eric Weinstein, who's kind of come into the limelight in a more negative way, I guess.
Oh, recently.
He's in a feud. Yeah, he's in a feud with Timothy Wynn.
Well, he doesn't like to acknowledge it. He made a tweet for the first time ever really acknowledging it.
Yeah.
Saying something about the itty-bitty balls on Tim or something. I'm like, oh, Eric.
Uh-oh. So
cringe.
Yeah, so Eric is publicly fighting or in a public feud with Tim Wynn.
Yeah, I'd say this is the first initiation of it.
Yeah.
Because he's been ignoring him for the longest time. But I guess Tim has finally gotten under his skin enough because he's literally going on like every podcast talking about the Eric Weinstein situation. So
yeah. And for this is a good way to not if you're gonna be ever a science communicator, how to handle, for one, fame, and how to not handle fame. I think.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting course. Of course, I'm still rooting for Eric. I hope he.
You hope he 180s?
I hope he 180s because I'm like, Eric, you have provided a lot of value. I think Eric's a good guy. He just gotta, he's just gotta accept the criticism. I don't really understand why he's so vehemently against criticism, against his theories. He's coming with all the kinds of excuses against it. Against what Tim said. And I mean, Tim's completely valid in everything he said. And I mean, as far as I can tell. And, he's a real physicist. His credentials check out and everything. So it's like, I don't know what Eric's doing here. But I wish him the best is all I got to say.
What kind of advice would you give a public intellectual like Eric? Like if you could sit down with Eric and talk to him and be like, how do we rectify this? How would you?
Well, the thing is, I could always tell him from the audience point of view, right?
Okay.
Because, while we have a small following, it's nothing compared to what Eric has, right? He's one of the most followed, maybe the most followed mathematician on Twitter, right? So I honestly feel bad for Eric because I'm sure he's got such a shift in lifestyle because of the fame, right? Because literally everyone knows every person in his family too now, right? His wife, Pia, his son, Zev, his daughter, even Nayla. Like, everybody knows who they are now because they're exposed on his social media. And Eric's also an old school guy. He's a Gen Xer, and he kind of isn't used to all this online stuff and all the rules that are associated with this now. So I think from what I can tell, to me it seems like the fame's kind of getting to him, and I wish Eric could just somehow take a step back and just take an online detox or something, and just sort himself out because from the audience perspective, I would just say, listen, Eric, I mean, it's not coming off good on your end. Eric, I mean, Tim is a very, cogent guy.
PhD.
Intellectually honest. Has been extremely generous in how he speaks about Eric, I would say.
Well, he called him
nothing scathing. I mean, I've been on Discord since pretty much the inception of the Portal Discord. Never seen Tim say anything crazy or outlandish. Even Theopolia as well. I mean, so anything Eric's really saying about it just seems manufactured. I know both Theo and Tim have talked to them several times. I mean, it just seems like BS coming from Eric.
Yeah. And so for those of you not in the know, I mean, if the beef and a lot of this background stuff is Eric Weinstein, brother of Brett Weinstein, comes up with his own grand theory to unify physics. But the aspect of it, or the perspective that he has, is one coming from a mathematical physics PhD background, and coming up with some really esoteric, very abstract math stuff, and tying it into the physics that we know today.
Right. Way beyond me and Juan's expertise. And we have what? Combined 16 years of experience between the two of us.
Really close to PhD level, but to be fair, regular traditional physics programs don't tackle the kind
Yeah.
of physics that he does.
Yeah. It's outside of the domain of what is in the curriculum, right?
Yeah.
We've gone to pretty much the highest levels of physics.
Yeah.
Maybe
Minus
minus let's say quantum field theory,
Quantum field
right?
theory,
Which is a part of it. But then that even extends beyond quantum field theory.
It does.
So it's like, this is like high level, leading edge theories of everything kind of stuff, which is not in the standard curriculum.
Yeah. And so Eric comes into the space publicly and has a whole theory. And this might be the first time we've talking about this, even though we've had 2 episodes about Eric's.
Right.
Essentially
We've talked about it on the
content.
Patreon, but not in the main
Public
channel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Eric's theory is one that is trying to unify all of physics, and it's a big task. And what he's taken on is he's put a target in the back of his head,
Right.
whether he wants to admit it to himself or if he wants to accept it or not.
Right.
He's put a
And
huge
there's
target.
nothing better than physicists love to do is correct a motherfucker. Right. Well, actually, it's definitely invented by physicists.
He should have. Somebody in his circle should have been like, Eric, I'm not sure if you want to do this, man. This is actually not a good idea because people are going to come after you.
They're going to take apart your entire lecture and try to
Yeah.
figure out every detail that you went wrong. So, and
Yeah.
that's the purpose of science, right? That's what
Yeah.
you should want, really.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, the red flags that I had about Eric were, and maybe in some sense, if you look back at it, the writing's kind of on the wall because he went a very unorthodox way of getting his PhD, which was usually when you get your PhD, you go through like a committee process,
Right.
which I would call really a dais. It's a roasting committee.
Yeah.
It's a committee of like
I'm not sure what a dais means.
it's like for a roast they have a dais, like a panel of comedians of your
Oh.
peers, and then they're the ones who roast you.
Oh, okay.
And in academia, that's kind of what you have. You have like 5 PhDs,
Yeah.
and you're defending your work to 5 PhDs.
Right. You wish you were getting roasted.
Actually, it's a lot more damaging to your ego.
Right.
I
That's
think.
what I'm saying. You wish you were getting roasted over that.
But Eric did not go through that kind of traditional route. I think he was kind of the department. I think from what I hear, his department was how would you say?
Well, he was advisorless for one, which is
Yeah.
already like I've never even heard of that.
Yeah.
I had no idea you can even complete a PhD without an advisor because it's like how do you even know where to go, right?
Yeah.
That's for one. It was already strange. And then number 2, I guess, was the fact that he said that he wasn't even in attendance at his PhD dissertation defense. So I guess they told him you couldn't actually defend or something. And I guess they just gave him the PhD just to not be there or something.
Yeah.
Which already I don't really know what that means. And I mean, Eric's told this story several times, but
Yeah. Maybe I'll find it and I'll clip it in
strange.
so you guys can hear it yourselves. But
yeah,
that's tough. Like on paper, if I see
Yeah.
that, I'm saying like, okay, Eric, are you okay with criticism? Because that's what your whole process of getting a PhD is. You're being criticized by your advisor. You're being guided by them. You're you know what I mean? Like
that's an interesting way to look at it. I wouldn't
Sure.
say that necessarily because the information is not really all there for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Eric was just really an ambitious student, let's say, and just
Sure.
wanted to be like, I'm the next Einstein. He got real cocky with it. It's like, I don't need an advisor. People, they can't understand my heterodox thinking.
Yeah.
Or he could just be like, maybe it's just like, oh, I want a challenge, or maybe he's just like, I don't like any of these guys here. There's many factors, right, that you
Sure.
could, or many different, let's say, motives he could have
Yeah.
for doing that. Or maybe he's just lazy and was like, I don't feel like finding an advisor, so I'm just going to do this my way.
But most departments usually bypass this by having a sort of PhD checklist. You have to have
Yeah.
a committee form. You do prospectus. You do all this stuff.
Right.
You pass your candidacy
Right.
and all this and whatnot.
And the thing is, he would have to formulate a committee too. So it's like, if he formulated the PhD committee, then how was he even able to get with the
I don't know.
advisor? So I'm thinking maybe it was a situation where maybe he had an advisor and they dropped him.
Which happens.
So we just don't know the full story, right?
We don't know.
We
yeah.
just don't know.
But still, like, Eric, for somebody like Eric, as a public science figure that I've seen in recent memory, who has had to kind of deal with the responsibility of being a public intellectual and then sort of right now, I'm only speaking for right now as of, August of 2021.
Right.
Eric still has time to redeem himself.
I think he does.
But
he just needs to be straight up. Just be like, all right, I was being a little I'm sorry.
Or
like my theory sucks, or it's not good enough, or because it's like we already know the theory's not complete. So it's like I just don't know what he's. I just don't understand why this fight. But anyway, we're kind of getting a little bit off topic. We're getting too honed in on Eric.
Yeah.
Is there anything final you wanted to say about?
I'm looking at I'm surveying the field.
Yeah.
Of the public intellectuals in physics and science.
Oh.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, we're at 51 minutes ago.
Yeah.
It's just testing time.
And he's he's just one of the more prominent ones right now. But but other figures, like I know you mentioned Sabine.
Sabine Hassenfelder.
She's more. I think she's a good way to kind of handle fame if you're kind of one of these small
YouTube podcast or YouTube things, Yeah, because Sabine kind of has a great balance. She kind of has fun with it, but also, that's a great transition because I actually was looking up H indexes because, I was thinking, I was like, you know what? I wonder how these public intellectuals compare, in terms of their popularity versus like their actual academic
popularity
influence, let's say. So let's say social media or media influence versus their social media influence. And Sabina was one of the people who I wanted to look up here. And actually, you know what I do? Because this is actually kind of annoying because it's really not that easy to find H indexes. So I was trying to think of what's the most objective criteria we have for rating or ranking physicists, right? It's kind of not objective as well. It's one of these things where it's like you can debate this. Like there's a woo index to try to correct for this stuff and like all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
But anyway, this is like the one that this is just an easy number I can fall back, just like IQ, right? Although there's BS involved, just accept it for now.
Wait, so what's H index and what is H index a measure of?
So the H index has a relation between the number of publications you do and the citations you get.
Right.
So let's say, for example, you have an H index of 18. This means that you've released 18 publications and you've had 18 citations on each of the publications. So for example, this is the example that was given on Google. So for example, let's say you have an H index of 17, but you have 18 publications. That means you were not able to hit 18 citations on one of your publications. So let's say all your other publications, let's say 17 of your publications got 18 citations, but the next one got like 2 citations. Then your H index is actually 17, even if you had a publication. So it's this weird metric.
Yeah.
I don't really understand the full reasoning, but what's been relayed on Google is that it's trying to show you the consistent relevancy of someone.
Gotcha.
Over time. It's an interesting way to do it. I haven't really thought of it fully, whether it makes sense or not, but that's what it is. So Sabina.
So the higher the better.
The higher the better. So the grades go as such let's use like the League of Legends ranking. So the League of Legends ranking would be, let's say if you get a 20, that would be bronze level, let's say, which is considered good. And then if you get a 40, that would be considered, let's say, a gold or a silver.
Yeah.
And then let's say that's silver, and then let's say 60 and above, that's gold. But like in League of Legends, you can keep going up and up, so you can still go to like platinum. You can go to what is it?
Rare earth metal.
Yeah, you could go like diamond, platinum, challenger level.
Yeah.
So some guys and gals are in like the challenger ranking, where it's be like Ed Witten, who has
or Juan
an absurd
Maldacena.
number, like in the 200s maybe even.
Yeah.
So a good would be like 20, decent, or pretty solid is 40, 60 is like stellar.
It's a tier list for organizing like how good of a scientist you are, you would say? Okay.
In some sense. Or like your influence. That's a very controversial statement you just said, but
I know.
At the end of the day, we'll just say yeah.
I know. And I'm agreeing to this only because like I'm familiar with it already, but the audience needs to kind of have some familiarity with it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So Sabina is on, so I go to scholar.google.com. This is kind of hard to find, but I just search her name and she's listed on here because she had her profile made on here. And Sabina has an H index of 29. So that would be right around the bronze silver area if we're using the League of Legends
So she's
ranking system.
she's a great scientist.
Yeah, and she's gotten much more relevant actually as time goes on. So she started like, fairly decently relevant in the 2002 and
Seems like
so
she was
forth.
starting her career around that time. Yeah.
Yeah, but she continues to get more and more relevance. So it even shows you how relevant people have gotten over time, and her relevancy is only increasing with time.
Nice.
And then we have some guys, like another one I looked up was Nassim Taleb. He's actually on here as well. Some people aren't on here. I looked up Neil deGrasse Tyson, and I looked up...
Well, because he doesn't publish.
Well, he has some publications, but he just doesn't have a profile.
I see.
So you have to actually make your profile. So Nassim Taleb has an H index of 50. So that's like around the region of silver to gold in the League of Legends ranking system. And he actually also has a very big increase of relevancy over time. So he's gotten much more relevant over time. And 50, that's pretty solid. That's approaching stellar area.
Yeah.
And then I want to look up, like, who's a guy that would be, like, I mean, obviously he's, like, super crazy index. So I looked up, naturally, Juan Maldacena.
Yeah.
So Juan Maldacena has a profile on here. And he's got
known for
81,000 citations. And he has an H index of 115. So that's an example of a crazy H index.
Yeah.
But of course, there's some other caveats, like some of them can be inflated due to, like, the particle accelerator people. If you type in anybody pretty much in nuclear or particle physics, they have these like 300 level H indexes. You're like, what? Of like some random person. Then you see, because they have, how the particle theorists, they have like 5,000 names on one paper.
Yeah.
And then it's the paper on the Higgs boson.
Yeah.
The discovery of the Higgs boson, right? So then they have these crazy inflated H indexes.
Yeah.
So this is another qualifier of looking at this number. You have to like actually sort through these certain things, because sometimes people have these crazy inflated numbers that actually don't mean anything.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you have a citation like Juan Maldacena, he literally has a paper that's only him as a first author. It has 21,000 citations. And just to put that in perspective, like, that's a giant number. Like, some people get like, 5 citations on a paper that are like, real
It's pretty good.
academic faculty precision physicists.
Yeah.
So that's like a crazy.
Yeah, it's not enough. It's not enough to
paper.
publish. It's literally citations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So did you have anybody to look up one?
No, I mean, I was just more interested in like how somebody like Sabine or somebody handles the responsibility of being a public figure. Like, it's just
I guess sorry to qualify my point there was to show like there is sometimes a disconnect between how prominent you are academically versus how prominent you are in the social public influence space. And Sabina would be a good example to me of like someone who's kind of in between there. She has this nice little balance she's found to be kind of influential academically as well as, publicly too. So, be like Sabina. You got to find that, you got to find that fine balance, or not, or not. Just go full ham one way or the other, because you could be like Neil deGrasse Tyson and get, $50K for every, public speaking gig you do. And I mean, then you're banking.
Probably more than that.
Yeah, that's the last time I've heard it. That was the last figure I heard about his in like 2014. So probably it's gone up since then.
Yeah. It's more lucrative to be a public science figure than
so it depends on you trying to chase that paper, or you trying to chase that,
the science cloud.
Yeah, the science cloud, or chase literally the white paper, the green paper or the white paper.
Yeah,
you choose.
It's up to you.
Yeah,
but yeah. Look, I think if you're one of these scientists and you want to handle fame, come to the Eigenbros camp to media training.
Yeah, ask a bunch of 30-year-olds how you should live your life. Who have we're millennials, who have no public clout or scientific clout.
Okay, but we're from online.
That's true. We know the online world for sure.
Think about it. When we were kids, we were born in it. We were born in the era of like the worst part. It was the Wild West at the time.
Yeah, Eric, I know, definitely needs some help in the online world because he makes some moves, and I'm just like, no.
There's a lot of people that don't understand the internet, and then there's some people that kind of understand, like use it as a tool,
Yeah.
like Sabine.
And you just got to know your steps you can make in the online world
Yeah.
too, because you can get yourself busted. Like
Yeah.
Eric talking publicly on Clubhouse, like the way he was saying things. I mean, it's like, Eric, you should know at all times people are recording your conversations.
Even though it's a very very trusting, you got to be careful. Look, I never leave receipts
Yeah.
on
Right.
anything, just because you can. Basically, it's self-snitching. You're
Right.
snitching on yourself.
Right. Even Twitter is like
Even Twitter is
pushing the
self-snitching.
line. Like,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. Don't ever say
we
anything.
might have to do a Twitter cleanse or something if we get big enough.
Terrence takes all responsibility for the tweets.
I do. I take 100% responsibility. So if any employers or whatever are coming after us, it's all me 100%.
Takes care
Juan
of the Twitter.
literally,
I literally
Juan
don't touch
literally
the Twitter.
would never say, you know, Juan is a non-controversial person. I take full responsibility. Clip this right here.
Although I have shared tweets. I have shared tweet ideas with you, but most of them are just dumb kind of.
Yeah, you'll do like the jokes or something.
Yeah.
Any controversial tweets are all mine. Always, just know that.
Yeah, but in seriousness, like I think we have a privilege. It's going to be interesting seeing a lot of millennial public science communicators.
Mm-hmm.
Like one of them that I see that navigates this space beautifully is funny enough that we had him on the show. Famous Australian. No, not ringing any bells.
Famous Australian. Wait, a famous Australian?
Yeah.
Oh,
think
Derek
it's-
Miller.
yeah.
Veritasium.
Yeah, Veritasium.
Cool guy.
We had him on the show. Believe it's still insane to
Yeah,
say
I know.
that.
I can't believe we did.
Yeah, but we had Veritasium, and I think he's a millennial. He's like one of these older
Yeah.
millennial guys,
For sure.
35 maybe, coming into his 40s probably.
Yeah. Somewhere around
And,
there. Probably. Maybe 37.
Yeah, and that's the thing. He knows how to use the internet.
Yeah.
He's a science guy.
He did his whole career path on his own, right?
Yeah.
One of the forerunners in terms of science communication online, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah,
Big
that's
time.
that's a big that's a good way to do it for sure.
Yeah, I see him, and then Neil is also one of these guys that adopted the online media.
Right.
A lot.
But he started, mainstream media
TV,
first because
yeah.
he got all his clout from,
Television
appearances and whatnot. And that's really like he's got all markets captured, really, because Veritasium is not really known in legacy media.
Right.
But Neil came up in legacy media,
Yeah.
which is probably the hard thing to do nowadays, right? If you come up with legacy media and then migrate online, you're just golden.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's hard to do. 'Cause some
Yeah.
people can't really transition from one to the other, right?
Yeah.
But capturing legacy media first and then going online, if you can do both those, you're made. You're
Yeah.
set to go.
Well, I mean, like that's kind of the thing too. Like just looking at the millennials in the space coming up, I see Veritasium in that as sort of like leading the millennial group.
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have, some of these other people around our age group. I mean, I would throw us in there, but we're kind of we're not really.
Yeah,
that
we're
big,
still in the
but-
low tier bracket, but we're at least recognized, I'd say, in the science community at least.
Yeah, like Andrew Dotson is another.
Right.
Well, friend of the show, Andrew Dotson. Shout out Andrew
Yes.
if you're watching this. I know he's been busy, but like, he's another guy that's also very prominent. Another millennial that's kind of making his stamp.
Right. And I feel like Andrew Dodson's only beginning.
Yeah.
Because he's in his chapter of still just getting his street cred, his physics cred, in
Right.
the field.
He's getting his academic name
Yeah.
ramped
Yeah.
up. Yeah.
He hasn't even. I feel like it's like he's like the Frieza saga where you haven't even seen Andrew Dodson's full power yet.
His final form isn't here
Yeah.
yet. He's still training for SSJ
Right. It's
Super
just straight
Saiyan
4.
4 or something. Yeah, literally. Andrew's one of these guys that has all the media like sort of
Right.
accolades, and then
It's like his beginning of his career, I feel like, is his proof of concept that he can be an effective science communicator. And now the phase he's in is like building his credentials
Yeah.
to really put the full weight behind his
Yeah.
whole career.
yeah,
And he can go either full researcher, but he also has the option to go, public science guy as well, which I'm hoping Andrew will take that route for my own, selfish sake of him, going the public intellectual route as well as,
Yeah.
the academic route.
yeah, same. I just want to make sure we hit all the points that
Yeah.
the,
What's our
the
time looking
commenter
at?
was saying.
Okay, we're at a pretty good time.
he was saying also a more meta question about the state of science, the effects of institutions becoming more powerful, the modern day internet avenue for these people to voice their discomfort. I think it's interesting from a sociological perspective, particularly as it pertains to the high ego fields of physics, the high ego fields like physics, astronomy, and maybe even biology and chemistry to a lesser degree, and how the age of the internet has affected scientific hierarchical structures of the ability of doing science, quote unquote, to actively be witnessed by the public.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Do you feel like we answered that?
Yeah, he mentioned something about institutions, though. I do really enjoy the fact that now this is kind of like the academic Me Too, where we can actually now talk about the annoyances and the gripes we have with academia,
right?
Which I think will ultimately help reshape those structures, right? Because people are not really buying the bullshit anymore, right? People are sick of just rolling over and having to take it whatever the institutions tell you have to do.
Yeah.
Which I think is great, and you can actually make your own way, which I think is one of the biggest perks of being, in this online intellectual public persona space. Which is honestly why it attracted me to it, the whole Eigenbros brand to me is like a way to be more free from having to be a part of these institutions that the aspects you may not necessarily like, right? For me, I mean, freedom is a huge part in the appeal of this whole game.
Gotcha.
What would you say?
I don't know. Just for me, it's just this is like those media captions that like people on sort of certain websites will just like even social media sites will just say their headline bio would just be just for fun.
Yeah,
that's really that's my thing on here. I'm just like doing this for fun. I have a lot of fun doing this, just like talking about science and just doing this stuff. But yeah, I do like the aspect of having sort of my 2 cents in the discourse and just being able to sort of maybe demystify the circle of physics. A lot of the physics figures that you get are sort of these
can we actually touch on that a little bit at the end for our closing, because I told you in the beginning of the week I wanted to do a video on like professionalism in science, and I feel like we kind of offer the counter to that, how you can kind of be still kind of goofy and retain your sense of humor and talk about stupid shit at the same time as being a physicist.
It's like loosening your tie up.
Yeah.
Relax a little bit.
Do you find that there is a way to do that successfully?
Yeah, because I mean, it's hard because you have to create almost 2 spheres. You have to create and I mean, I think the best person that walked this line was Richard Feynman. You create a sphere of like, okay, well, this is your personal life, and then this is your professional life. Like, he took his professional work very seriously, but then in his personal life, he's kind of a goofy person. He was just
right.
And there are very few physicists like that. I can think of like Brian Cox is probably another guy that's somewhat similar, although he's gotten more serious.
Yeah, he started out as like a musician or something in a rock band.
He was kind of, but I can see how that can kind of wear you down because people in the science community kind of marginalize you if you're not.
Right. You're a celebrity scientist.
Yeah. Well, that, and if you don't present yourself as what a physicist would look like or do or blah blah blah. Like there's a lot of ways that you can kind of get. How would you say you can kind of be fit into a mold of what a physicist is, right?
Pigeonholed into a idea of what people think of you.
Yeah, and I mean that's not to say we're still physics nerds probably compared to the average Joe, but still like being able to talk about topics and still be somewhat in touch with the sort of how would you say working class, the people that are just in the norm,
right.
Still have
just like with internet culture and things like that. Yeah.
So I think we offer a unique perspective in that. And then also some people, if you look at it in a culture of like, or in the lens of like culture and race and shit like that, then we also have a unique perspective in that. But although we never really talk about our experiences.
Yeah,
in
we
regard,
don't really as
but-
much.
But yeah, it's,
Maybe at some point we'll do that.
well, on
I
our
feel like
page,
there's so much of that these days. I almost feel like it's just
it's already
we
covered.
get it.
It's
Yeah,
already
we get
covered.
it. Yeah,
Other
'cause,
people,
like we're in the zeitgeist right now of like race and social analysis, right?
Yeah.
It's
people
like it's overwhelming almost.
well,
so,
people got that covered. So
Yeah,
think,
I think we're
we'll
good.
leave it to the professionals.
Yeah. But of course we have different. I think we would have a really interesting take on things, but
Sure.
maybe another time.
Sure.
Not right now.
Yeah, no, but in essence, yeah, I think we do kind of offer the counter, you know, and I hope
Yeah.
we stay that way. I hope I never really have to tighten my tie. The only time I have to tighten my tie is when I'm like, how would I say this? Just like actually having to defend some of my like work in my field. So,
Right.
but that's the only time I really would reserve my critical judgment or critical thinking in that aspect. Like I wouldn't come into the show. I come into the show wanting to be entertaining, but then also add something that is interesting or leave people learning something or taking away something. And that's kind of what I would hope to contribute to that. Mostly entertaining.
Well, Juan, I think we are successful, at least from our kind audience tends to say.
Yeah.
There's usually not too many bad things. Although, even if you have bad things to say, that's still useful to us too, because I like criticism.
Same.
We can take it on the chin.
Yeah.
It's fine. Anything that helps to improve the podcast, I think, is a win.
Yeah, I agree. So what about you? How do you feel like in terms of professionalism?
Yeah, man, I think it's a shifting tide. The more I see on Twitter, like people using their real names who are scientists, doing things that maybe you could not have gotten away with, 2 decades ago. It shows me that there's like this blurring of you can be less of a, stick up the ass type where you have to
Be uptight.
be completely uptight and, always formal wear and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And you can even see it in workplaces, people wearing sandals and stuff and coming in
Dude,
with
how did we
sweatpants
think of
and-
the same professor? There's a professor that I was thinking about. He's so cool, but he takes his work so seriously.
I don't know if I am thinking.
No, he wears sandals. He's a guy of high esteem but short stature. And he's definitely he would, if he could, he would kill you with physics.
Oh yeah.
He takes his job very seriously, but he's a
Right.
guy who's like just super cool. Like
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about
Yeah.
now. He literally looks like he could kill you with one roundhouse kick. If he's not going to kill you with physics, he's going to kill you with his, his
high
martial
jump
arts or
kick,
something.
yeah. he's gonna like just destroy you. But there's I look up to the professors that I had. There's a couple,
Yeah.
maybe two. Another guy who was like took his work very seriously, but he was like the coolest guy. Very very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's like a handful of those people. Like if
Yeah.
they went online, the thing is they're completely removed from the online sphere. But
Yeah, but I think they could do it.
yeah,
Like we saw the guy from the first, I think it was the Mars rover mission with the Mohawk.
yeah.
That guy he
then-
blew up because people were like, this is
That's a
this
scientist?
is an aerospace engineer with his Mohawk. And then there's the guys I see with tattoos and whatnot. It's like the game is changing now to where people can be more themselves.
Yeah.
It's like how basketball, they got more people that were able to be coming there tatted up.
Yeah. That's
have
true.
crazy hair like Dennis
Yeah.
Rodman. It's like
And still do their professional work.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you can now start to be more of yourself. It seems, and I think we're all better for it. Honestly,
I agree. Anyway, so
yeah.
we can end it with the question.
yeah.
So do you have the?
Did we have a question though?
Yeah, we did.
What was the question?
Okay, we'll pull it up.
All right, guys. So this is the first Ask Eigenbros question, and this is going to be anonymous since we never got approval from this person even
Oh, we didn't.
ask their question. So we're just going to make it an anonymous person.
Mm-hmm.
But you know who you are when you hear it. So this one says, "Hey, how do you guys combat imposter syndrome or the comparison game when you're applying to grad school or to schools? I'm sorry.
Do you want to take this one first, or me?
Sure.
I can. If
You wanna-
you pitched it, I'll swing. Okay. I'll swing.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
So, how do I combat that? You have to really kind of believe your credentials. Because think about it, in your undergraduate career, you're going to take a certain route. There are a lot of students that play to their strengths, and you got to play to yours in your undergrad experience. So for me, like, I didn't really play the academic route. I kind of just like put a lot more chips into my experimental work, because I saw grades as kind of like not a true metric of like understanding the material. I wanted to know. I wanted to do physics at the ground level experimentally. So I put more of my chips on that, and I rested my laurels on that fact. So at the end of my career, my GPA wasn't so great, but I had a lot of experience, almost 4 years of lab experience as an undergrad, which is practically my whole time in undergraduate. I just spent mostly in the lab. So that helped a lot. So I would say buying into your own path is the best way to do it. Be like, I did it the best way I could, playing to my strengths. And if you didn't play your strengths, then I don't know, like,
Right.
darn it. Then maybe you can find ways to kind of address that in your application. Like, I know they have personal letters, personal statements.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe
Might be a
talk
little
about
bit
that.
late now. I'm not sure
No,
when people start.
No, you can still.
Yeah, I guess
most-
there's probably some schools,
there's-
right?
Yeah, there's still schools. I think that the application deadlines close
Okay.
in like October, maybe
Really?
November. Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, go ahead.
So I guess for me, there were a couple critical things. So one major insight or revelation I had in life was to not compare yourself to other people. So when you're comparing yourself, it's a bad game. Like, the thing is, your skills are very different from other people, and you're going to be better at someone else at something than they are. And the thing is, what happens is, in some weird way, when you're comparing yourself, you like compare yourself in this unrealistic fashion of like, you compare against like everyone. So you're trying to outmatch everyone and everything, right? Which is just a dumb game to play, just plain and simple. So you just have to really remember that you have your own unique abilities, and you're going to be good at something that someone else sucks at, and they're going to be good at something that you suck at. That's just how it goes. So that is what I usually start with when I'm thinking of the comparison imposter syndrome game. The more evolved version of that, I would say, is, as humans, we always are going to compare, right? We live in a society. We're going to compare ourselves to other people, right? You want to be middle of the road, at least. You don't want to be the last place person. So then in that sense, I would say compare yourself reasonably. Once you understand not to compare, once you've graduated from, okay, I feel comfortable not comparing, compare yourself reasonably. And that just means look at the average performance of people. Know who the stellar people are who started when they were 2. Whose parents are, freaking Ed Whitten. It's like, you're never going to out-compete them, at least not in the short term. Maybe in the long term you can. And then just don't go in the middle of just don't go with the low-end people who are, getting high every day and, watching PBS Space Time for their studying,
Yeah.
for their physics
They
studies.
get all their physics from Rick and Morty or something.
Right. So
No offense.
as long as you're, yeah, no offense, Rick and Morty watchers. I love Rick and Morty. Be in the middle somewhere. As long as you're doing your best, giving all you can that you've got, and you feel satisfied at the end of the day of what you accomplished by not comparing, then you're good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think most people forget that. Well, I think the institution, like school, academic, universities, and just colleges do this. They make you feel like you are how would you say, a lone wolf. And science is more of a team sport.
It is.
Really. So playing to your strengths is probably the best thing you could do. Like, for
Yeah.
me, I recognize that, well, I'm not going to be the best theorist. I don't have the legwork. I don't have the background enough
Right.
to catch up with people who like have been doing physics since they were 15.
Yeah.
So I was just like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna put my chips into experimental work and be a good experimentalist. That takes, I can do that. And that was my route. That's kind of the route I took, and I was perfectly comfortable with that. If you feel like you have deficits, you don't have to be the perfect. You don't have to be the perfect physicist, but you also don't want to be. You at least want to be average, but then excel in this one in your one particular focus.
Just excel in the things that you respect and that you like to do.
Yeah.
If you suck at certain aspects, try to correct and get better as you can over time, but really hone in on those strengths.
Like
Bob said.
we're not you and I are not relativity experts.
Right.
We're not experts
Sure.
on GR. We're not experts on particle physics. And yeah, to be even average in those respects is still like
saying something for sure.
Yeah, still saying something. So yeah, don't try to be too hard on yourself. And like Terrence is saying, do the comparison game maybe when you're amongst your fellow like people that are in your respect. Like, okay, this person, like people in your, like if you're working in a lab group, that's a good way to like who to compare to, because you're in the same field, you're in the same lab, you're
Right.
like, those are the people that you're sort of in your cohort that are like really that you're competing with,
Right.
because they're on the same level as you. So yeah.
Sounds good. I think that about wraps it up.
Yeah.
So I guess, yeah, guys, make sure just to close it out, like, share, comment, subscribe, that good stuff. Check us out at eigenbros.com, Eigenbros on Twitter, Eigenbros on Instagram, Eigenbros2 on TikTok. And once again, patrons, thank you guys so much. We appreciate the support. Juan and I couldn't do it without you guys. We're really trying to go strong and keep this thing going, keep this train moving. And if you guys are interested in joining Patreon, it's patreon.com/Eigenbros. Support us. You get a 30-minute audio podcast there every week. And anything else, Juan, I forget?
I think that's it.
All righty, guys.
All
Later.
right. See you later.